ng-conf production team is amazing. Like Zero Slopes and Sunny and Shiloh and Tyler and the entire crew is amazing. So we did all that, and it was the first time I ever tried a format with like I'm inviting volunteers from the audience.
Right.
It was like seven of them, and everybody made mistakes.
Right.
And I was like super sleepy, so my judgment calls were off. So I decided to do warm up with the audience, although I didn't have time for that. I didn't even watch the timer, so I went like over by 10 minutes talk, and anyway, so I felt so bad afterwards because I felt it didn't really give the educational part. It was too chaotic.
Yeah.
And also I went overtime. So when Frosty like told me, okay, don't go over 30, it took like all the lessons from, okay, this time I want it to be educational.
Right.
And I want to stay on time.
Okay.
So I did like two test runs in Israel. The first one was 45 minutes.
Okay.
But I had 30. So I said, okay, cool. I filmed it. I reduced the slides.
Tighten it up.
And then like 2 weeks ago, I did another one where I reached like 33 minutes. I said, okay. I managed to shave off like some time. And then I said to myself, okay, on the way here, I will like, remove some slides and we'll figure out how to shorten.
Yeah.
So I didn't manage to do it on the way because I was like too sleepy and couldn't like concentrate. The day before the talk, like on Tuesday, I sat down for 2 hours, remove a bunch of slides, timed it, and instead of 33 minutes, it was 39.
Oh gosh. It got longer. So you added some stuff.
What is going on here?
Yeah, I removed slides and it got longer. So I was like, what the hell is that? So I then like came back. So I went like to eat or something like that. I came back and then I spent another hour and removed more slides and managed to get it back to 33 minutes. But this time I didn't have time left to even invest more because I need to sleep.
Right.
I need to get up to do that.
To give the presentation. Yeah.
So I told Frosty, dude, I don't have any idea. So, but they learned their lesson. They put me just before lunch.
There we go.
Right?
Yeah.
So that way, if I go over, I at least don't mess up like the schedule of the other speakers.
There's still like 2 hours, so people can eat lunch a bit later.
Yeah.
So okay, so you kind of progress. Like it sounds to me like with anything, right? Like you do it your first time and you just kind of get through it. It's a learning experience. You're just trying to figure out how does this even work. But you've given enough talks now. It sounds like you've kind of narrowed in on how to prepare the talk. And even if you're still kind of cramming in those last few moments, I still think like you were preparing a couple weeks in advance. But I do want to go back to something because you mentioned you felt imposter syndrome.
Yes.
And I think that's important because people, like we've talked about this, where people look up to you as this great entertainer, this great presenter, but I don't think they often stop to consider what is he experiencing? Does he feel imposter syndrome? And what are your thoughts and emotions? And so I'd love to have you explain that side of it and the pressures of feeling like, am I really good enough for this? Am I really going to do a good enough job in what they're asking me to do? Am I going to deliver not just the fun, but like you said, the learning as well?
Yes, that's a good question. And I think that the best way to describe it is to tell the story of my first time in the ng-conf. Like I mentioned, 2015, where like all the atmosphere was different. And so I submitted a talk called ng-wat, WAT, which was a take on another talk called JavaScript WAT, which was a funny lightning talk about like the quirks of JavaScript and Ruby, which was hilarious. It was like a viral video. So I took like inspiration from that and I submitted an Angular version of it, like the same format. Like you show something weird about the framework and then you show a funny, weird picture.
Yeah.
So I submitted I actually tried to submit like talks to other conference. It was around like 2014. So I tried to submit to, it was back then Europe in France, I think. They declined it. Not the same talk, but just other talks. Because I used to at that time give talks in Israel, but not outside of Israel.
Okay.
So then I submitted. I had like few ideas, and I saw that ng-conf CFP for 2015 is open. So I said, well, I have this idea for the ng-wat talk. So I would just submit that quick, and then I will think about like cool ideas for like professional talks. So I submitted quickly, really in 5 minutes. I written the description, thinking no way in hell they will ever like accept it. No way. It was like, ng-wat, something, this will be like this will be like a talk about all the weird thing about Angular. Prepare your adult diapers. This one is gonna be hilarious. Like even promising that like
Yeah.
Right.
and nobody knew me, right? Like nobody knew who I am, and I'm just this guy from Israel, and I don't know anyone. But I used to like I watched the first ng-conf remotely because of the live stream, and I watched all the fun they had, like with Ward Bell and John Papa, and they had skits, and like everybody were friends and knew each other, and I remember seeing that and like feeling inside like how happy I will be to experience such a thing, to be in the audience, that just there with these people, to have fun with them, to meet them, just as a fan. So I submitted, and then I thought, okay, I will submit the serious talks, but then the imposter syndrome kicked in, and I said to myself, what will I submit? They have the Angular team,
Right.
giving talks.
Right.
What can I teach the Angular team about Angular, right?
Yeah.
So the perfectionist in me kicked in, and I was like, I kept trying to think about like a good like title other than the ng one, but I never got to that because the processor, like I felt like I'm not good enough,
Right.
to teach, right? To teach about other stuff. Now, submitted, thinking, okay, forget about it. So after like 2 months, I was sitting with friends in a living room of one of our friends, and me and my wife, like a big group of people, and all of a sudden I get an email. So I'm checking my phone, I'm getting email, I'm saying your talk got accepted. Hello, about you. So about your ng-conf submission. Preparing myself for a rejection email.
Okay.
That was the title. So I was preparing for, thank you for submitting, but your talk.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm opening up the email, like prepping myself for a disappointment. And I'm starting reading it, and it was like, thank you for submitting. Your talk got accepted. We're pay for a flight and hotel, and you're going to speak in the biggest stage in the world. And I was like reading that, and I stopped reading. I was like, oh my God.
What did I do?
And all of my friends stopped what they're doing, and they saw me and thought somebody died.
Oh no.
Because I had like, I was white in
Yeah.
the face, like I was pale, and I was reading it. And in Hebrew, when you try to translate your talk as accepted, it sounds weird if you literally trying to translate it.
Like
So it sounds like I kept saying. So I said translated it out loud, and I said my conversation got accepted to ng-conf. My conversation, like literally the literal translation was talk, conversation.
Yeah. Talk, yeah.
So everybody didn't understand what?
Yeah,
what are you talking about?
Yeah, what conversation?
What conversation? Like your phone doesn't work? Like what?
Right, yeah.
So my wife was like, honey, do you mean your lecture was accepted?
Yeah.
And I said, yeah, my conversation. Yeah, I was like super confused, and like because all the meaning of the thing got like fell upon me all at once, which was okay. First of all, wow.
Right.
Yeah.
Second of all, how the hell I'm going to deliver this talk?
Yeah.
Like
Pressure's on.
yeah,
Yeah.
I set the bar too high.
Right.
Okay, and then like if I won't succeed, it will be the end of my career because
Who else is going to bring you on?
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
because it's not just like a talk; it's a roast.
Oh yeah.
It's making fun of the decisions the Angular team made for Angular JS back then.
Yeah.
In front of the Angular team.
So you could be pissing off the very people you want to impress the most.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just like the people inside the conference, it's live streams to like 10,000s of people.
Right.
So you're trying to be funny, you're trying to make fun of, and you need to do it in such a way that it's not insulting and it's actually funny and in the end like positive also, like not just complaining but also like trying to shed the light and keep it light. Okay.
Maybe a little educational somehow.
Yeah. So all that pressure was on me because if you don't hit it, if you're not funny, and if you're insulting and not funny, everybody hates you. Everybody hates you. Like a stand-up comedian who's not funny, you hate them.
Right.
It's not like, oh, this one is boring. You hate them for wasting your life. This like 20 minutes of not funny stuff. It's like the worst. So I have a background in stand-up comedy and in improv. So I actually went through a period in stand-up where I was not funny for like months. And I kept going every week until I cracked how to do it in a way that like is not like how to raise the energy, how to think about the situation in such a way and to position it, let's say, in my favor. What do I mean by that? And that's an advice that I started giving speakers in my meetup group. And that advice I'll now explain, but I also used on myself before the NG-Watt to try to reduce the pressure, the enormous pressure that I had to, it could be a disaster to my career and my life, or it could be like an explosion and it's very successful. It's either that or that, right? It's like, so the advice was, whenever you're going to give a talk, you want to focus on, you want to imagine, and that's what I used to do in stand-up, that everyone in the audience are your friends.
Okay.
Even if you're a complete stranger to them and they are to you, you want to fool yourself that these are your friends, and just like in another group meeting, like with your friends, and just like, trying to teach them something or trying to make them laugh or what, something like that.
Yeah.
But to make yourself feel comfortable. The second thing is about trying to focus on giving and not on getting or taking.
Okay.
Because no matter if your talk is good or not good, you're out there to give. There are some rare occasions where people are focusing more on like trying to maybe sell or market
some product,
right, to push some product, something like that, where it's more about taking than. But when you actually come from a giving mentality to try to teach or try to share value, for example, in the talk that I gave like 2 days ago, I gave one of my best techniques that I charge for, that took me years to develop, and I just gave it, just to give people the entry point, like to a better, like smoother experience into testing, and not to charge for it, just to give it. And then if you come from a giving mentality, plus you imagine that all of the audience are your friends and they